If you've ever woken up in the middle of the night, stared at the ceiling, and thought, why is my brain like this? Congratulations, you already understand the mood of Henry Fuseli's famous painting, The Nightmare. But long before the internet turned nighttime overthinking into a sport, an artist from Switzerland decided to paint one of the strangest, most unsettling dream scenes ever put on canvas. The year is 1781. People are drinking tea, writing letters, and trying not to bump into furniture in dim candlelight. And somewhere in all this, Fuseli sits in his studio, probably tired, probably stressed, and definitely full of dramatic energy. He finishes a painting he calls The Nightmare. When people finally see it, they don't know whether to be impressed, scared, or concerned about the artist's sleep habits. But before we jump into fear, demons, science, or anything too heavy, let's set the stage. Imagine a slow fade-in, warm narration, soft background sound. Picture yourself walking into a quiet room, the kind of room where every step echoes a little. The walls are plain, and hanging right in the center is this painting, dark, bold, and full of mystery. It has that kind of energy that makes you want to get closer, but also makes you want to stand just a little bit back, just in case. Because you never know with old paintings. They stare at you, they follow you, they judge you for your messy sleep schedule. You stand there, looking at it. A woman lies on a bed, draped in white fabric. She looks completely out, like the kind of deep sleep you only get after telling yourself you'll just take a 5-minute nap. Her arm hangs off the edge, like she gave up on life halfway through adjusting the pillow. Her head is tilted back, her hair spills over the edge of the bed, and every part of her body language says, "Yeah, I'm done." But the mood shifts quickly when you notice something else. Sitting on her chest, yes, sitting, is a small creature, dark, heavy, and staring straight at you with the intensity of someone who hasn't blinked since Tuesday. And if that wasn't enough, from the shadows behind the bed, a horse's head pops out. Not a cute horse, not a let's go for a nice ride horse. No, this one looks like it saw something terrible and came straight here to report it. It's dramatic, it's strange, it's unsettling, and it's exactly why this painting became so famous. The funny part is, people back then weren't used to such bold, dreamlike images. They were used to portraits of fancy people standing next to columns, paintings of kings posing with fruit, calm landscapes, nothing too wild. So when Fuseli walked in with this, "I painted a woman, a creature, and a horse popping out of my nightmares," the entire art world basically did a double take. But let's pause the chaos for a moment. The goal of this chapter is not to scare you. It's to slowly pull you into the world of this painting, gently, calmly, almost like a bedtime story that just happens to have a creepy little creature in the corner. Don't worry, it won't follow you home, probably. We're starting here because this painting isn't just a painting, it's a doorway. It's a frame holding a whole story about dreams, fear, the sleeping mind, and the strange things humans imagine when we're not fully awake. Fuseli didn't just throw random stuff on the canvas. Well, maybe he did, but he made it look intentional. And now, hundreds of years later, people still stare at it and try to decode what he meant. Was he showing fear? Was he showing a dream? Was he showing how it feels when you fall asleep on your back and suddenly your brain says, "Guess what? We're doing nightmares tonight." That's what makes the painting exciting and a little funny. It takes something familiar, something nearly everyone has experienced at least once, that strange, frozen moment between sleeping and waking, and it turns it into art. Now, let's talk mood, because the vibe of this painting is important. It isn't loud, it isn't chaotic, it's quiet. Almost too quiet. The room feels like it's holding its breath. The shadows are deep, the highlights are bright. Everything feels frozen in time except the viewer, who at this point is definitely blinking a lot more than usual. The woman in the painting doesn't know what's happening. She's totally lost in some deep dream world, and that's kind of the magic. The whole scene is happening around her, not to her. She's gone. The real drama is for the viewer. And that's why the painting refuses to sleep. Even when you look away, you still kind of feel the atmosphere of it. Fuseli tapped into something we all feel but don't always talk about, the weirdness of the mind at night, the uneasy mix of imagination, fear, and mystery that creeps in when the lights go out and your thoughts get a little too creative. When the nightmare was first shown to the public, people were stunned. Some were horrified. Some were weirdly fascinated. It became the kind of painting everyone whispered about, the kind of artwork that travels through crowds like a rumor. Did you see that one? The one with the thing sitting on the sleeping woman? And people would nod and say, "Oh yes, that one. What is going on there?" That's the beauty of it. The painting gives you just enough information to understand the scene, but not enough to explain it. And the parts that are left unexplained, well, those are the parts your imagination fills in. That's what makes it a perfect piece for a bedtime documentary. Strange but calm, eerie but still somehow peaceful. Before we go deeper into the painting itself, we need to take a little trip back in time. Not too far, just a quick stroll to the late 1700s. Picture this. No phones, no screens, no do not disturb mode. People had candles, handwritten letters, and the constant hope that their wig wouldn't fall off in public. Life moved slower, quieter, and honestly, a little stranger. Europe during this time was going through what we might call an identity crisis. On one side, you had people who were super into science. They were making telescopes, measuring everything, and announcing discoveries with the energy of someone who just solved a puzzle. On the other side, you had people who were still very attached to old stories, old fears, and old ideas about how the world worked. So the vibe was basically, let's understand the universe, mixed with, but also let's not trust anything that moves in the dark. It made for an interesting mix. This period was known for big thinking and big questions. People were trying to understand the human mind. They wondered why we dream, why we imagine weird things, why sometimes our brains decide to show us images that make us sit up in bed like, "Excuse me, who ordered this nightmare?" But even though people were thinking more deeply about the human body and the natural world, they still had moments when they shook their heads and said, "Nope, that shadow over there looks suspicious." So when Henry Fuseli came along with his dramatic imagination and love for creepy, dreamlike scenes, let's just say the world was not fully prepared, but also kind of ready for something new. Everyone was caught in the middle of reason and curiosity. The mood of Europe was like a cup of tea someone left too long, warm, strong, and just a little unsettling. Let's imagine everyday life for a moment. Streets were quieter, horses made all the traffic noise, people dressed in layers, a lot of layers, even when the weather didn't really call for it. If you wanted to know the news, you waited for someone to print it on paper. If you wanted to talk to someone far away, you wrote a letter and hoped the person delivering it didn't wander off or get distracted by pastry shops along the way. Nighttime was a completely different experience back then. Today, we have lights everywhere. You can walk outside at 3 a.m. and still see your feet. But in the 1700s, once the candles were out, that was it. Darkness. Deep, thick, why did that shadow move darkness? And that kind of darkness plays with your mind. It fills in the blanks. It makes you wonder what's real and what your imagination is inventing for fun. This is important because the painting we're studying, the Nightmare, comes from a time when people understood darkness in a way we don't anymore. Their nights were silent, their homes creaked, their sleep wasn't always peaceful, and without the comfort of a glowing phone screen to distract them, their thoughts had a lot more room to wander. Now let's look at the art world of the late 1700s. Artists were trying new things. Some were painting dramatic historical scenes. Some were interested in capturing real people, real places, and real emotions. But very few artists were brave enough or wild enough to paint something like a strange creature sitting on someone's chest while a horse stared dramatically from the corner of the room. Enter Henry Fuseli. People didn't fully know what to do with him. He wasn't a soft, gentle painter. He liked intense shadows, wild poses, big emotions, and scenes that made people feel uncomfortable, but also kind of fascinated.
In a world full of portraits of serious-looking people standing next to bookshelves, Fuseli's painting style was like opening a door and finding a whole other reality inside. The time period also had a strong interest in storytelling, big dramatic stories full of intense moments. People loved reading tales that made their hearts race a little. They loved hearing about haunted places, unexplained things, and dramatic dreams. The word mystery sold faster than hot bread in the morning. So even though people were trying very hard to be logical and rational, they still had a soft spot for anything that made their imagination light up like a spark. This mix, curiosity, darkness, questions, and a taste for dramatic stories, created the perfect setting for the nightmare to make an impact. When people saw the painting in 1782, they reacted strongly because it touched something they already felt, that strange in-between place where the mind drifts during the night. It's also worth mentioning how different the sleep experience was in this period. People didn't have comfortable mattresses with 10 layers of fluff. They didn't have fans to keep the room cool. Most bedrooms were warm, stuffy, and quiet enough to hear every small sound. And in the middle of that silence, their brains did what brains do best: imagine things. Some nights probably felt a lot longer than they needed to be. So imagine you're living in this era. You've had a long day, you're finally in bed, trying to sleep. There's no city noise, no bright lights, nothing except your thoughts. Maybe the wind makes the window rattle. Maybe the house settles and makes a sound. Your mind starts to wander. Your heart picks up a little. You close your eyes anyway, and somewhere between being awake and being asleep, your imagination paints shapes behind your closed eyelids. It's no surprise that dreams felt so real, so strong, and sometimes so unsettling. People back then took dreams very seriously. They wrote about them, they compared them, they tried to understand them. But at the same time, they didn't have a clear explanation for why dreams happened, or why some dreams were peaceful while others made them sit up sweating. That's the thing about this period of history. It was a time when people were asking a lot of questions, but didn't always have clear answers. And in that space, that uncertainty, creativity grew. Artists like Fuseli pushed boundaries. They took nighttime thoughts and turned them into paintings that made people pause, stare, and go, okay, this is definitely something new. Europe in the late 1700s may seem old-fashioned now, but it was full of life. It was full of strange ideas, deep questions, long nights, and imaginations that refused to quiet down. It was a world trying to understand itself, one discovery at a time, and also a world where people still whispered about unusual dreams and nighttime experiences. And it was in this world, with its mix of curiosity and mystery, that Henry Fuseli decided to paint something unforgettable. This was the stage, this was the atmosphere, and this was the beginning of the nightmare's long journey through history.
Before we dig deeper into the painting itself, we need to talk about the man behind it, Henry Fuseli. And trust me, this guy was anything but boring. If most artists of his time were like calm cups of tea, Fuseli was more like an espresso shot at 1 a.m., dramatic, intense, and absolutely convinced that life needed more flair. Fuseli was born in Switzerland in 1741, in a place that looked peaceful on the outside but was full of thinkers, writers, and people who argued about ideas for fun. Imagine a kid growing up in that environment. Some children draw flowers and houses. Fuseli probably sketching shadows and dramatic poses before he could even spell his own name. His father was a painter too, but of a very calm kind. Portraits, landscapes, nice and steady stuff. This kind of influence usually creates a soft, gentle painter. Fuseli did not get that memo. Instead of painting cute lakes and polite faces, he wanted drama. Big drama. The kind where you stare at a canvas and think, whoa, is he okay? But here's the thing. That intensity was exactly what worked for him. As a young man, Fuseli was sharp, talkative, and honestly a bit fiery. He had opinions, a lot of opinions, and he wasn't shy about sharing them. This eventually caused him a little trouble in Switzerland, so he left and spent time traveling. During these travels, he became obsessed with big dramatic stories, legends, epics, poetry, anything with bold emotions and strange imagery. Books became his fuel, and imagination became his engine. Eventually, he made his way to England, and if you think modern cities are chaotic, London at that time was basically a hot pot of ideas, arguments, heavy clothing, and unpredictable weather. But for Fuseli, it was perfect. People there loved art, loved storytelling, and loved big personalities. He fit right in. Now, when Fuseli first started painting professionally, people noticed something immediately. He did not draw like everyone else. While other artists carefully painted neat faces and elegant clothing, Fuseli painted scenes that felt like they walked straight out of someone's dream, or maybe someone's weird afternoon nap. His characters twisted, stretched, reached, and collapsed with theatrical energy. If a pose could be calm, Fuseli chose the opposite. He loved exaggeration, loved shadows, loved anything that made the viewer tilt their head and go, huh, interesting choice. And honestly, it worked. Even people who didn't get his style still found themselves staring at his paintings longer than they expected. One fun thing about Fuseli, he was a bit dramatic in real life too. He dressed with flair. He spoke with passion. Some people said he walked into a room like he was entering a stage. It's very possible that even his normal conversations sounded like he was narrating a novel. Just imagine him ordering breakfast. Bring me the toast of destiny. But behind all the flair was someone deeply curious about the human mind. He wanted to understand why people dream the way they do, why the imagination can create things that feel real, even though they disappear the moment we open our eyes. And most of all, he wanted to paint these experiences, not the outside world, but the inside one. Here's where things get interesting. Around the time he was preparing to paint The Nightmare, it's said that Fuseli went through a personal, emotional phase. He fell deeply, dramatically in love with a woman named Anna Landholt. But the relationship didn't work out, for reasons that history didn't record in detail. Did she reject him kindly? Did he write long, emotional letters? Did he stare out a window dramatically while thinking about life? Possibly all of the above. Whatever happened, it left a mark on him, and people believe this emotional turmoil played a role in shaping some of his most intense artwork. Now, it's important to say we're not here to judge anyone's love life, but it does add a layer of understanding to why Fuseli was suddenly painting scenes full of tension, darkness, and sleep-related chaos. You know how sometimes when you're stressed or sad or confused, your mind starts producing the most dramatic dreams ever? Yeah, Fuseli basically turned those dreams into art. His studio became a space where imagination ruled. He filled sketchbooks with wild gestures, sharp lines, and strange figures. Sometimes he'd draw in a way that made people wonder whether he slept much, but that was the energy he thrived in, creativity that didn't stop just because the clock said it was time for bed. Another thing that set Fuseli apart was how much he loved reading. He didn't just read simple stories, he dived into big works Shakespeare, Dante, Milton, stories with intense emotions, high stakes, and characters who go through inner storms. These narratives didn't just entertain him, they shaped his artistic style. If he painted a scene, he wanted it to feel like it came from an epic tale. It wasn't long before Fuseli became known for his unusual, bold artwork. Some people loved it, some people were confused, some people were probably wondering if he needed a nap, but no one ignored it. That's the level of impact he had. He was also a teacher later in life, which is amazing when you picture him giving advice like, yes, yes, more shadows, more drama, make the figure look like they're in the middle of a dramatic life decision. His students definitely had an interesting experience. But through all of this, the bold personality, the dramatic style, the emotional experiences, the artistic experiments, Henry Fuseli stayed true to one thing. He wanted to paint the inner world, not just what people see, but what they feel, the strange, quiet, sometimes chaotic space inside the human mind. Which brings us directly to The Nightmare. This painting wasn't some random idea. It came from the perfect mix of who Fuseli was: dramatic, curious, imaginative, and unafraid of exploring themes that others found uncomfortable or confusing. He understood that sleep, dreams, and the half-awake space were full of stories, and he wanted to capture the moment where imagination is strongest, that blurry place between deep sleep and the waking world. In short, Henry Fuseli wasn't just an artist, he was a dream catcher, someone who grabbed strange images from the mind and painted them with absolute confidence. Now that we know who Henry Fuseli was, dramatic, emotional, imaginative, and probably over-caffeinated before caffeine was cool, it's time to talk about how the nightmare actually came to life. Because paintings don't just appear out of thin air, they come from real feelings, real moments, and sometimes real chaos in the artist's mind. And in Fuseli's case, yeah, chaos was definitely involved. Let's start with the year, 1781. Picture it like a scene in slow motion. Fuseli is in his studio, surrounded by the smell of oil paint, stacks of paper, half-finished sketches, and probably a few cups he forgot to wash. The light is dim, the room is quiet, and in the middle of all this, he's preparing to create one of the most unforgettable paintings of the century. But where did the idea come from? Well, that story begins with feelings, big ones. Earlier in his life, Fuseli had gone through what we can politely call an emotional situation. There was a woman named Anna Landholt, someone he cared about deeply. Some say he was wildly in love. Some say he was gently in love. Some say he was dramatically in love. Honestly, with Fuseli's personality, probably all three at the same time. But unfortunately, whatever he hoped for didn't work out. We're not here to judge or dig into personal details. What matters is this. The experience left him with a storm of feelings. And when Fuseli had feelings, he painted. That was his language. While some people wrote long, emotional letters or walked around sighing loudly for dramatic effect, Fuseli picked up a brush. This heartbreak or disappointment, or both, didn't make him stop creating. It did the opposite. It pushed him deeper into imagining scenes that didn't belong to the ordinary world, scenes full of strong emotions, intense shadows, and dreamlike tension. So one theory is that the nightmare was born from this emotional state, not as a message, not as a symbol, but simply as a kind of emotional release, a visual diary entry, a moment where his inner world spilled onto the canvas. But here's the fun twist. Fuseli never explained the painting clearly, never wrote down, "this means that," or "this symbol stands for this." Nope. He let people guess. He let the mystery ride. And that mystery has only made the painting more fascinating. Another piece of the puzzle is Fuseli's imagination style. He didn't like calm scenes. He didn't care about painting happy people eating fruit. If he was going to paint something, it had to make you feel something. It had to have drama, movement, atmosphere, tension, the full package. And nighttime scenes? Oh, he loved those. The quiet of night, the softness of sleep, the wild thoughts that sneak into the mind when everything else goes quiet, these things fascinated him. While some people were painting people in fancy outfits, Fuseli wanted something stranger, something deeper, something almost cinematic. And so the idea formed: a dark room, a sleeping figure, something sitting on her chest, something watching from the shadows, a dream but made solid. The early sketches for the nightmare show Fuseli experimenting with different positions, creatures, and lighting, like he was trying to find the perfect balance between eerie and calm. He didn't want the painting to be loud or chaotic. He wanted it to feel like a dream someone accidentally left open on the table. One of the earliest notes from people who knew Fuseli said something like, "He is working on a scene from sleep that troubles the mind." That was the mood he aimed for. Not horror, not danger, just that strange confusion the mind creates when it mixes dreams with reality. Another interesting detail, the model for the sleeping woman wasn't meant to represent anyone specific. Fuseli didn't paint her based on a real person. Instead, he chose a posture that expressed absolute vulnerability, the kind of deep sleep where the body flops however it wants, without dignity, without style. The kind of sleep we all fall into after a long day. Then there was the little creature, small, heavy, and staring with unblinking intensity.
He didn't call it anything officially, didn't give it a name or a backstory. He just placed it there, almost like a weight sitting on the viewer as much as on the sleeper. Why? Because Fuseli understood something important. Nighttime fears don't need explanations, they just need presence. And then, of course, the horse. One day, Fuseli added a horse head popping through the dark background, and people have been debating that decision ever since. But in Fuseli's mind, it made sense. The painting wasn't supposed to be realistic. It was supposed to feel like the strangest moment of a dream, the kind where the brain thinks, yes, this is normal, even though it absolutely is not. What makes this painting so fascinating is that it doesn't stick to a single meaning. It's not a puzzle to solve, it's more like a feeling that got turned into an image. Did Fuseli intend it to be unsettling? Yes. Did he want people to stare at it and feel something they couldn't fully explain? Definitely. By the time he finished the painting, he probably stepped back, wiped his hands on a cloth, and thought something like, "Yep, this will get a reaction." He wasn't wrong. When he finally brought the nightmare to the public, it stopped people in their tracks. Some stared quietly, some whispered, some leaned in with the curiosity of someone watching a slow-motion video they don't fully understand. But before we get to the reaction, which we'll explore, it's important to know that the nightmare wasn't created to scare people. It was created to explore an experience everyone has felt in some way. That moment, half asleep, when the mind invents things, that tension between comfort and unease, that strange heaviness that sits on the chest when dreams get dramatic. Fuseli didn't paint the outside world, he painted the invisible world, the world inside the mind at night. And the origins of the nightmare weren't supernatural or mysterious. They were emotional, personal, human. A mixture of feelings, imagination, and the desire to turn inner experiences into art. A moment where the artist decided, let's paint the feeling of a dream that doesn't quite let go. And that decision changed art history.
So picture this. You're lying in bed, half asleep, mind drifting between, I should get up tomorrow and be productive, and actually no. The room is quiet, the world is chill, and everything feels fine. And then suddenly, something feels off. Not dramatic, not dangerous, just strange. Like your brain turned on the something is watching me mode for no reason at all. Sound familiar? That weird moment of half-dream, half-awake confusion is a huge part of why Fuseli's painting still hits home today. Even though he painted the nightmare back in 1781, people across centuries look at it and go, yeah, I don't like that feeling. I've been there. The woman in the painting looks like she fell asleep while scrolling on her imaginary 18th century phone. She's draped across the bed, head tilted back, limbs soft like she's given up on pretending to be elegant. And sitting on her chest is that tiny, scrunched up, slightly angry-looking creature, just existing like it pays rent. And then there's the horse, peeking out of the shadows like it just walked into the wrong room and doesn't know how to leave politely. The whole painting gives off the energy of a dream that keeps coming back. Not necessarily scary, just persistent, like a dream that rings the doorbell again even after you already said, I'm busy. Now, why does this painting feel familiar to so many people? Why does its strange energy connect with viewers who have never experienced anything intense or frightening at night? Well, part of the answer has nothing to do with the creature or the horse or even the dramatic lighting. It's actually the pose of the woman. She looks like someone caught between two worlds, the world of sleep and the world of waking up. Everyone knows that moment. Your body is heavy, your brain is foggy, and you're floating somewhere between dreamland and please let me go back to sleep. It's that quiet, heavy stillness that we all drift into when we're exhausted, and Fuseli somehow painted that feeling perfectly.
But here's the interesting part. The thing sitting on her chest, a creature that looks like a disappointed potato, adds a layer of mystery. It represents that strange pressure people sometimes feel when they're half asleep. The kind of pressure where your body says sleep, your mind says wake, and your dreams say, we're not done here yet. That sensation isn't unusual. In fact, people all over the world describe moments like this. That's one reason the nightmare is so famous. It captures something strangely universal, that moment when you're just awake enough to feel your surroundings, but just asleep enough that your brain throws in something extra. You know the vibe. Did I hear something? Is something in my room? No, okay, wait, that's just a pillow. Is it though? Your brain whispers a tiny what if, even when nothing is happening. That half-dream space can make shadows look alive, or make your blanket feel heavier than usual. And Fuseli painted that exact mood, like he reached into that quiet, confusing space and turned it into art. But here's the interesting part. The expression on the creature's face. It's not excited, it's not furious, it doesn't even look particularly powerful. It looks tired, almost bored, like it's been sitting there for hours thinking, ma'am, I'm just doing my night shift, please stay asleep. And somehow that makes it feel even realer. Not dramatic, not epic, just an awkward visitor who shows up every now and then in the middle of your rest. The painting doesn't scream danger, it whispers discomfort, and that's a feeling many people understand. Now, let's talk about the horse in the back. The poor thing looks like it walked into the wrong dream. Eyes wide, posture stiff, probably wondering how to back out slowly without knocking over someone's lamp. The horse doesn't belong there, and that's exactly the point. Dreams don't follow rules. They don't respect logic. You can be dreaming about your kitchen, and suddenly a horse just appears like, hey, I heard there was free food. That randomness, that sudden shift, that's the flavor of dreams that makes them feel so familiar, strange, unexpected, and somehow perfectly normal at the same time. The painting captures something we've all felt, that moment when your brain throws together a bunch of unrelated things and blends them into one scene, and you just accept it because you're asleep. Fuseli turned that chaotic dream energy into one frozen moment on canvas. But here's the coolest part. Even though the painting looks dramatic and intense, people often find it comforting in a weird way. Not because of the creature or the horse, but because it reminds us that the mind is powerful and imaginative. It can create entire scenes without asking for your permission. It can mix reality and imagination like a blender set to mild confusion. And when you wake up from a dream like that, you usually laugh at yourself. You blink at the ceiling and think, wow, my mind was really doing its own thing last night. That's the same vibe this painting gives, a reminder that dreams visit us over and over in different shapes, and most of the time they're here for no reason at all, just little returning visitors, dropping by, making themselves comfortable, and leaving without saying goodbye. So as we move deeper into this documentary, keep this in mind. The nightmare isn't just a spooky painting, it's a mirror. It reflects that strange space we've all drifted through at some point, that half-dream place where your brain wanders, your body rests, and your imagination briefly takes control. And that's why it feels so familiar.
So let's settle in. Get your blanket straight, take a slow breath, and imagine we're sitting beside Fuseli while he works, though honestly, he'd probably be annoyed because artists can be dramatic like that. The first trick he used is light, not normal light, not soft daylight or cozy candle glow. Fuseli used dramatic, sharp lighting that makes the characters look like they're caught in a spotlight. The woman is glowing like she's on a stage, while everything else around her is swallowed by darkness. The creature perched on her chest pops out because of this lighting too. It's like the shadows gathered around the bed and said, let's leave the center clear so the drama can happen. If you've ever woken up in the middle of the night and your lamp creates weird shadows on the wall, then you already know this effect. Things suddenly look way more dramatic than they should. A shirt on a chair turns into a whole new creature until you blink twice. The painting gives off that exact vibe.
Another trick Fuseli used is exaggeration. The woman's pose is so stretched and relaxed that it almost feels theatrical. Nobody actually sleeps with their arm perfectly falling off the bed like that, unless they're trying to win an award for most dramatic sleeper. But that exaggeration is exactly what makes it memorable. It's like he took a peaceful pose and turned the dial slightly toward, "This looks intense." The creature is exaggerated too. Its eyes are too big, its expression too serious for such a small body. It looks like it has a whole personality, even though it's tiny. That's what makes it stick in your mind. You look at it and instantly understand it's important. But the funniest exaggeration is the horse. It's sticking its head through the curtains like it's delivering mail. The eyes are wide, like it accidentally walked into a dream it wasn't invited to. It shouldn't be there at all, and yet it fits perfectly because Fuseli made it dramatic enough to match the mood. The next trick he used is something artists love: body language. The woman's body is loose, heavy, and soft. She looks like she's fully surrendered to sleep, or maybe like she's too tired to care about anything. And because she's so limp, the creature sitting on her feels heavier, more noticeable, more there. If she had been sitting upright or curled into a ball, the creature wouldn't feel as central. Now here's the cool part. Body language makes the entire painting feel like a moment frozen in time. You can imagine what happened 1 second before, and maybe what might happen next. The stillness feels alive because of this. Fuseli also used contrast, not just light and dark contrast, but emotional contrast. The woman looks peaceful, soft, calm. The creature looks tense, alert, like it's staring into your soul. The horse looks startled. 3 totally different moods all smashed into one scene, and somehow this makes the painting feel dynamic, even though nothing is moving. It's like watching 3 people in a room who aren't talking, but are clearly having very different experiences. Another trick is mystery. Fuseli doesn't give us a clear explanation of why these characters are together. There's no obvious story, no labels, no speech bubbles, just a scene that makes you go, okay, what exactly is happening here? And our brains love filling in the blanks. When something is unclear, our imagination jumps in and starts working overtime. That's why people remember this painting long after seeing it once. Their minds keep trying to connect the dots. Fuseli also used texture to sell the feeling. The fabric on the bed looks soft and heavy, the woman's dress looks smooth and silky, the creature's skin looks rough, and the horse's hair looks wild, like it just came from a windy place. These textures add a realness to the painting. You almost feel like you could touch them. Then there's the pose of the creature. It sits in a hunched, slightly leaning forward way, like it's listening for something. That little lean gives it personality. It doesn't feel random. It feels like it has thoughts. Maybe it's guarding. Maybe it's watching. Maybe it's waiting for the woman to wake up and say, "Hey, you dropped your pillow." The horse's pose does the same thing. Its head is forward, its posture stiff. It looks like it just appeared and hasn't figured out if it should stay or go. That awkward surprise feeling makes the painting funnier and more unnerving at the same time. Another of Fuseli's tricks is the absence of motion. Everything is completely still. The woman isn't moving, the creature isn't moving, the horse isn't moving, but the stillness is so intense that it feels like something might happen any second. That kind of tension is powerful. It's what makes the painting feel alive. It's like listening to a quiet room where you expect a small sound to break the silence. That anticipation creates energy. Color is another subtle trick. Fuseli didn't go crazy with colors. Instead, he kept things muted, simple, and moody. Deep reds, soft whites, dark shadows. This keeps the focus on the shapes and the expressions rather than flashy details. It also makes the whole scene feel like it's happening in a dream, not in the real world. But maybe the biggest trick of all is how Fuseli used space. The bed takes up a huge chunk of the painting, pushing everything else into tight corners. That closeness makes the scene feel close, cramped, intimate, like we're invading someone's private moment of sleep. That closeness makes viewers instantly connect with the scene because it feels personal. All these tricks, light, exaggeration, pose, contrast, texture, stillness, color, and space, work together to make the painting feel alive even though it's completely still. It's a quiet scene, but not a calm one, and that balance is what makes the nightmare unforgettable. Fuseli didn't just paint a moment, he painted a feeling, and that's the real magic here.
First of all, even though the creature and the random horse tend to grab everyone's attention, the woman is what makes this painting work. Without her, the whole scene would just be two dramatic characters standing around waiting for instructions. She's the anchor, the main emotion, the human piece that makes the painting feel relatable instead of just strange. And the very first thing you notice about her is how dramatically she's sleeping. I mean, this is not a normal map. This is a "I have given up on this world for tonight" kind of sleep. She's lying across the bed like she fainted halfway through telling a story. One arm is hanging off the edge, loose and heavy, like she had a long day and decided the bed can only handle 70% of her body. It's such an exaggerated pose that you can almost hear her saying, "I'm done. Just wake me up when life gets easier." But here's the interesting part. Even though she looks super relaxed, her pose creates a big contrast with the two spooky visitors in the room. She's calm, they're not. She's soft, they're stiff. She's peaceful, they look like they're auditioning for a very strange play. This is what gives the painting that "something is happening while you're helplessly sleeping" feeling. Let's talk a bit about her expression. Her head tilts back, hair falling behind her, eyes closed, mouth slightly open. It's the kind of expression people make when they're in deep, deep sleep, the kind where you forget the world exists. And that makes the whole scene feel believable. If she looked tense or awake or worried, the painting would lose its quiet intensity. But the softness of her face tells us she's out. Completely, deep in that stage of sleep where your body feels heavy, your breathing slows, and your mind drifts into dreams that make absolutely no sense. Her dress also plays a part in the overall mood. It's white, soft-looking, and loose. That makes her glow against the dark background. It adds to the sense that she's the innocent, peaceful center of this whole nighttime moment. The color choice also helps draw attention to her, even though she's not doing anything dramatic. One detail people don't always notice is how the bed is set up around her. The pillow, the curtains, the blanket, they all frame her body. It's like the painting is saying, "This is where you should be looking." Fuseli used the environment to guide the viewer's eye straight to her. Another fascinating thing is how her body language suggests both vulnerability and calmness at the same time. She's laid out like someone who trusts the space around her, yet the visitors in the room say otherwise. It's that contrast, calm body, tense environment, that keeps people staring. She feels real, human, like someone you could walk into a room and see taking a nap after a long day. But here's something fun. Nobody actually knows who she's supposed to be. There's no record of her name, no confirmation she was a real person, no model notes, nothing. Fuseli left her identity completely open, which is honestly one of the reasons she's so interesting. She could be anyone. She could represent the idea of sleep itself. Or maybe she was based on a model who just happened to fall asleep during a painting session, and Fuseli thought, "Nice, let's work with that." Because the woman's identity is unknown, viewers naturally project themselves onto her. People look at her and think, "Yeah, I've had nights like that," or "That's literally me when I nap too hard." She becomes a mirror, a symbol of that weird moment between dreams and waking up. And even though she's not doing anything active, she's actually doing a lot for the atmosphere of the painting. Her stillness is what makes everything else around her feel tense. Imagine if she were sitting up, wide awake, staring at the creature. The whole painting would instantly turn into a different story, something more dramatic, more chaotic, more active. But because she's asleep, the scene becomes quieter, heavier, and more mysterious. It feels like a moment that doesn't want to be disturbed.
Another detail people forget is how gracefully she's painted. Her posture may be dramatic, but the lines of her body are smooth and elegant. Her hand hangs over the edge of the bed in a gentle curve. Her neck stretches in a relaxed line. Even the way her hair falls looks soft, like it belongs in a calm dream, rather than in a room full of surprise guests. This creates a beautiful tension. She looks peaceful, but the setting around her is anything but peaceful. She looks relaxed, but the creature's stare suggests something weird is happening. She feels unaware, but the horse is literally popping out from behind a curtain like it's trying to photobomb. All of that makes her the emotional center of the painting. One thing people often wonder is whether Fuseli's goal was to show someone in a dream or someone experiencing a strange moment while asleep. But the answer doesn't actually matter. The woman represents that universal experience of being totally unaware of what's going on around you when you're fully asleep. That strange vulnerability we all have when we're out cold. She's the human element in a painting filled with strange, dreamlike characters. Another important thing is how normal she looks. She's not overly stylized or exaggerated like the creature or the horse. This makes her stand out even more. She's the familiar piece of a very unfamiliar scene, so she helps ground the painting in reality while everything else drifts into imagination. And maybe that's why viewers connect with her so strongly. She reminds them of themselves. She feels like the only understandable part of an otherwise confusing painting. In a way, she's the doorway between the viewer and the dream. She's the tether that keeps the painting balanced. Without her calm posture, the whole scene would feel chaotic or cartoonish. But with her, it becomes a quiet, intense moment that feels strangely relatable. So who is she? Maybe nobody specific? Maybe everyone at once. She's all of us on a tired night. She's the person drifting into a deep dream. She's the calm center in a room full of weirdness. And that's what makes her unforgettable.
So get comfortable, adjust your pillow, and let's dive into the weirdest roommate in art history. Let's start with the obvious. The creature looks like it's having a serious moment. It's sitting proudly on the woman's chest with the confidence of someone who found the best spot on the couch and refuses to move. Big eyes, stiff posture, tiny body. It looks like it's holding on to a lot of emotions for something that's barely knee-high. The funny thing is, this creature isn't doing anything dramatic. It's not jumping around or causing chaos. It's just sitting there, quiet, still, focused. But somehow that stillness makes it even more noticeable. It feels like it's thinking very hard about something. Maybe about life, maybe about snacks, maybe about why it exists. Who knows? People always ask, what is the creature supposed to be? And honestly, that's part of the charm. It doesn't look like any animal you can find in real life. It's not cute like a puppy, not scary like a wolf, not friendly like a cat, and definitely not majestic like that confused horse in the background. It's its own thing, a strange little mix of human-like features and animal-like posture. The way Fuseli painted it gives it a kind of personality. Its eyes are wide and intense, like it just made direct eye contact with someone across the room, and now things are awkward. The way it leans slightly forward makes it look alert, ready, focused, almost like it's waiting for something to happen. Even though it's small, it feels heavy. You can imagine the weight of it pressing on the woman, giving the painting that sense of discomfort. It's like when a pet sits on your chest, and at first it's cute, but after a few minutes you're like, okay, buddy, breathing would be nice. The creature's posture is one of the most interesting things. It's perched, not relaxed. Its back is rounded, its shoulders are slightly raised. That gives it an edgy, tense vibe. Not dangerous, just unsettled. Like it has responsibilities it didn't ask for. The position of its hands also adds to its personality. They're resting on its knees, like it's trying to look casual but failing. It's the pose of someone sitting in a waiting room trying not to look nervous. And that expression, those eyes, they're not angry, not sad, not excited. They're more like, I'm watching everything, don't mind me.
It's the kind of look someone gives when they walk into a meeting 5 minutes late and pretend they meant to do that. Another cool detail, the creature is placed right in the middle of the painting, front and center. If the woman is the soft, calm background vibe, the creature is the please explain what you're doing here energy. And Fuseli painted it with sharper lines than everything else, sharper shadows, sharper highlights. That makes it pop out instantly. Even if you try to focus on something else, your eyes wander back to it. It's the attention grabber of the room. Let's talk about its size for a moment. It's small, but not tiny. Big enough to look heavy, small enough to look awkward. It's like the perfect size to make viewers uncomfortable in the most subtle way. If it were huge, the painting would be dramatic. If it were extremely tiny, the painting would feel silly. But at this size, it hits that perfect middle point that makes people stare a little longer. Its color adds to the effect. The dark tones make it blend with the shadows, but the highlights make sure it doesn't disappear completely. It looks like part of the nighttime atmosphere, like something that crawled out of the darker corners of a dream. Now here's something interesting. The creature doesn't look hostile. It doesn't look like it's planning anything dramatic. There's no movement in it, no aggression, no drama. It's just existing. And that calm existence is honestly what makes it so memorable. It's strange, but it's not trying to scare you. It's not screaming with its face. It's not attacking. It's not even touching the woman in a threatening way. It's simply there. And that just there feeling is something everyone recognizes from dreams. The part where something appears in a dream and makes no sense, but dream logic says, yes, this is normal, continue. It captures that exact vibe. The creature also adds balance to the painting. Without it, the woman's pose would feel like the painting was too empty in the middle. With it, the whole composition becomes centered and complete. Another thing that makes the creature stand out is how different it is from the horse in the background. While the horse looks startled and intense, the creature looks calm and grounded. They're opposites, and that opposite energy makes both characters more interesting. Some viewers think the creature feels almost too confident for its size. That's what gives it that slightly humorous vibe. It sits like it owns the place, like it's supervising the entire nighttime activities, like it's the manager of sleep-time activities. And somehow that makes it feel familiar. Not because we see creatures like this in real life, but because we've all had dreams where something weird shows up and behaves way too calmly for the situation. Another detail, the creature seems to have texture, rougher skin, wrinkled face, small frame. That adds to the idea that it isn't just floating or glowing or ghostly. It feels solid, heavy, real, like something that could actually exist in the physical world, even if we don't want it to. One last cool thing, the creature's placement on the woman's chest creates a symbolic moment without needing any complex explanation. It shows pressure, heaviness, and the feeling of being pinned down during a dream. It's simple, clear, and very effective. That's why it steals the spotlight, not because it's scary, not because it's dangerous, but because it's strange, calm, and confusing in a way that feels real, even though it obviously isn't. The creature is the mystery that makes the painting unforgettable.
First thing you notice, the horse isn't fully in the room. It's peeking, like it slid its head through the curtains and instantly regretted the decision. Its eyes are wide, bright, and dramatic, like someone just told it the Wi-Fi password and it wasn't expecting that level of responsibility. The horse looks shocked, surprised, maybe even a little embarrassed. If it could speak, it would probably say something like, "I'm so sorry, I did not mean to intrude," or "I thought this was a different dream." And honestly, that energy is exactly why the horse is such an iconic part of the painting. It feels totally out of place, and somehow that's what makes it perfect. Let's talk about its expression. Those glowing eyes are wild. They're huge, bright, and impossible to ignore. The horse isn't looking directly at the woman or the creature. It's staring forward, toward us, like we're the unexpected part of the scene.
That's a fun twist. The horse isn't reacting to them, it's reacting to us, as if we opened the door at the wrong time. Now let's look at how Fuseli painted the horse. Its head is long, stretched forward, almost floating. You don't see the body, just the head peeking from behind the curtains. That gives it a mysterious vibe, like it's appearing from another space entirely. Some people think the horse looks dramatic because of its posture. Its neck is stiff, its head angled forward, ears standing tall. It's in full alert mode, like it just heard a noise in the kitchen at 3 a.m. and needs to investigate, but also doesn't want to be responsible for whatever it finds. The placement of the horse is clever. It sits in the background, but not too far. It's tucked behind the dark curtains, so the only thing that pops out is the bright, startled face. This creates contrast, soft, deep shadows around a shining, intense set of eyes. That instantly draws attention. You could look at the painting for the woman or the creature, but eventually your eyes drift to that horse like, why is that guy here? And that's exactly the magic of it. The horse brings an unexpected layer. It adds strangeness, depth, and humor all at once. Next, let's look at its relationship with the creature. The creature is sitting front and center, serious, calm, almost too confident. The horse, meanwhile, looks like someone who walked into the wrong movie theater. They're total opposites in mood, and that makes the scene more dynamic. The creature looks like it knows what's going on. The horse looks like it wants to leave immediately. The contrast is hilarious and also genius. It creates movement without anything actually moving. Now, the horse's presence also adds atmosphere. Without it, the painting would feel more grounded. But with a horse staring from the shadows, the painting instantly feels dreamlike. Because really, how often do horses just poke their heads into rooms for dramatic effect? Exactly. Another cool detail, the horse's eyes aren't just bright, they're reflective. They catch the little bit of light in the dark room, making them glow. That glow helps separate the horse from the background, adding depth to the painting. It also makes the horse feel a bit unreal, not fully dream, not fully real, somewhere in between. It's the kind of random character your brain throws into a dream because it's bored. The horse also helps balance the composition. With the woman lying on the bed and the creature sitting on her chest, the bottom half of the painting is heavy with detail. The horse in the top half keeps the whole image from feeling too bottom-heavy. It spreads the visual interest across the canvas. Now let's talk about its posture. The horse's nostrils are slightly flared, mouth barely open, and the neck muscles look tense. That tells us it's reacting to something, maybe the strange scene in front of it, maybe something behind the curtain. The painting never explains, and that mystery adds to its charm. The way the horse blends into the background gives it a floating feeling. You don't see hooves, legs, or a body, so it feels almost like a dream element instead of a real animal. Its form melts into the darkness, making it look like it appeared out of nowhere. Another reason the horse stands out is because it breaks the rules of space. Horses don't casually stick their heads out of curtains in bedrooms. That simple rule breaking makes your brain pay extra attention. Your mind goes, wait, that's not normal, and once it notices the horse, it can't unsee it. The horse also adds a sense of depth. The creature is in the foreground, the woman is in the midground, and the horse is in the background. Those three layers give the painting a deeper, fuller feeling. It feels like a real space instead of a flat drawing. Now here's the fun part. The horse brings humor without trying. Its expression is unintentionally funny. It's dramatic in a confused way. Even though the painting has an eerie vibe, the horse's face breaks that tension just a little. It adds an awkward charm, like someone who walked in at the wrong moment and panicked internally. It stops the painting from feeling too serious, too heavy, too dark. It adds just enough weirdness to make the whole piece balanced. Another detail to notice is the placement of the curtains. They're pushed aside just enough to reveal the horse's head. Too perfect to be an accident. This shows Fuseli wanted the horse to be both hidden and visible, mysterious and obvious at the same time. It's like a cameo appearance in a movie, a surprise guest star. Now, let's talk about the relationship between the horse and the viewer, because honestly, the horse isn't just part of the scene, it's looking directly at you. It's one of the only characters making eye contact. That pulls you into the painting. It makes you part of the moment. The horse's expression says, I don't know what's going on, but you're seeing this too, right? And that connection is what makes the painting unforgettable. The horse isn't scary, it's not threatening, it's not doing anything dramatic, but its presence adds mystery, humor, and depth to the entire scene. It's the silent witness, the confused bystander, the unexpected guest who somehow completes the entire picture. That's the power of the horse, the silent character that ties everything together.
Now we're turning our sleepy flashlight toward the mysterious woman lying on the bed in the nightmare. She looks peaceful, dramatic, maybe a little too flexible. But who was she really supposed to be? Now, before we jump in, remember, no big grammar, no heavy stuff, no topics that get videos flagged, just calm, cozy storytelling. So let's settle in. The first thing everyone notices when they see the nightmare is the woman. She's right there in the middle, dressed in soft white, draped across the bed like she fainted in slow motion. She almost looks like she's floating, or like she fell asleep halfway through a dramatic pose contest. Either way, she steals attention instantly. And honestly, that's the point. Fuseli wanted you to look at her first, feel curious, and maybe even a little uneasy. Artists back then loved using the color white to show softness, innocence, or calm, and here it works perfectly. The room behind her is dark, heavy, almost like a quiet storm, but she stands out like a light. It's a classic trick, soft figure, spooky background. It's like when you're watching a cozy sleep documentary and suddenly remember you forgot to turn off the stove. The mix of calm and tension creates a strong mood. Now, a big question people always ask, was this woman a real person? Did Fuseli base her on someone he knew? Maybe a model? Maybe someone he liked? And here's the chill truth. Nobody knows for sure. But artists in the 1700s rarely painted random faces. They usually used references, sketches, real people, or even bits of imagination mixed with features they saw in everyday life. Some art historians think the woman was based on one of Fuseli's earlier figure studies. He had a habit of sketching dramatic poses and keeping them around to use later, kind of like how people today keep a folder of ideas I'll totally finish someday. Fuseli simply grabbed one of those poses and built a whole dramatic moment around it. Others suggest that maybe she wasn't meant to represent any specific person at all. Instead, she could be a symbol, a stand-in for anyone who has ever had a strange dream, or that feeling when your body forgets you're asleep and your brain decides to run the weirdest slideshow it can create. That universal feeling is what makes the woman relatable. You don't know her, but you kind of do. Look closer at the way she's positioned. Her arms are dropped back, her head tilted, her hair spilling over the edge of the bed. It's dramatic, yes, but it's also almost too perfect. This wasn't meant to be a normal sleeping pose. Fuseli exaggerated everything, the breathing, the tension, the softness, to capture a moment that doesn't look natural but feels true. Almost like when you try to describe a dream you had, and suddenly your version sounds way more dramatic than reality. Now, let's talk about her face. Her expression is interesting because it's actually not scared. Her eyebrows aren't tight, her jaw isn't clenched, and she's not trying to push anything away. Her face is calm, like someone fully asleep and unaware of the chaos happening on top of her. That's important. Fuseli wasn't trying to show someone fighting something. He wanted to capture the exact moment when you're stuck between dreaming and waking up, that hazy spot where strange things can happen and you can't move or react. That's part of what makes the painting so powerful. You're watching something happening to the woman, but she doesn't respond. She doesn't even know. That's what gives the whole scene its feeling of mystery. Next, let's talk about the lighting. Fuseli was clever. The woman is the brightest thing in the room. The bedsheet shines, her dress shines, even her skin is lit softly.
everything around her is darker. That contrast makes her look almost unreal, like she's glowing in a dream. The rest of the room fades into shadows, which draws your eyes straight to her. You can almost feel the quietness around her, like the room itself is holding its breath. And that leads to another question. What's her story? What happened before this scene? Did she lie down to rest and drift into a strange dream? Was she exhausted from the day? Did she just fall asleep quickly, like someone who promised themselves they'd only close their eyes for 1 minute? Fuseli never explains it. He just shows us the moment after she's already crossed into her dream world. Her pose also adds a theatrical feeling. Fuseli loved dramatic art, strong shadows, stretched poses, bold scenes. The woman lying across the bed isn't just asleep, she looks like a character in a dramatic play. Everything about her posture says, yes, this is the moment you will remember. And honestly, it works. If the woman were drawn in a normal sleep position, the painting wouldn't hit the same. It's her dramatic shape that makes the whole image feel dreamlike. But here's the interesting part. Even though she's the center of the painting, she's also the quietest part. The things around her add the tension, but she remains still. She's the calm in the storm. It's like Fuseli is showing us the two worlds at once, the peaceful body and the wild dream happening inside her mind. And that's why the woman in white is still talked about today, not because we know who she is, but because she represents something familiar, the strange, quiet moments when dreams feel real.
We've talked about the woman, the creature, the expressions, the drama, but what about the room itself? The background might look simple at first glance, but it's actually a huge part of why the nightmare feels the way it does. Let's drift into it slowly, chill and relaxed. The room in the nightmare has this heavy, shadowy feeling the moment you look at it. It's not a messy room, it's not full of clutter, it's not packed with props like some paintings from the 1700s. No, Fuseli kept it simple. But that simplicity is why it hits so hard. It's almost like a dark stage where only one spotlight is on. The darkness isn't just dark, it feels thick, like something quiet is hiding in it. Not dangerous, just unknown. The kind of calm gloom you feel when you wake up at night, look at a corner of your room, and your brain goes, why does that corner look extra dramatic right now? It's that vibe. Notice how most of the background melts into shadows. Fuseli didn't fill the space with details on purpose. The less he shows, the more your imagination does the work. And honestly, that trick works way better than stuffing the place with objects. Your mind fills the gaps, and suddenly the room feels bigger, deeper, and more dreamlike. Right behind the woman and the creature, there's that long, heavy curtain. And wow, that curtain is doing a lot of emotional lifting. It's dark, thick, and pulled to the side like someone just opened it before a performance. That alone makes the whole scene feel theatrical, like a moment caught on stage. Fuseli loved dramatic theater, and it shows here. The curtain isn't just fabric, it's a mood. The darkness around the bed also has this floating effect. The bed looks almost suspended in space, like it's the only thing that exists in the whole room. That makes the woman and everything happening on top of her feel isolated, like the entire world around her has faded away while she's deep in a dream. There's also a weird sense of stillness in the room, not peaceful stillness, but the kind where everything is quiet and waiting. The lighting is soft and limited. No glowing windows, no candles, no bright objects, just a focused, warm light around the woman and the bed, with everything else slipping into the background. That lighting choice was intentional. Fuseli wanted your attention locked onto the main scene, but he also wanted the background to whisper, not shout. So instead of showing where the light is coming from, he just lets it exist. Kind of like when you're watching a movie and don't really ask where the magical spotlight is, it just works. Another thing to notice, the shadows aren't smooth, they're uneven, patchy, and layered. This gives the whole room a slightly uneasy texture without showing anything actually alarming. It's a classic art technique to make the space feel dreamlike. Real shadows fall logically, dream shadows fall emotionally. Let's talk about the furniture.
or honestly, the lack of it. Besides the bed and a small table in the background, there's not much else. No shelves, no decorations, no objects to distract you. If Fuseli added too many things, your eyes would wander, but with so little in the room, your focus stays on the woman and the strange creatures around her. Even the small table in the corner fades into the shadows. You can barely see it unless you look closely, but that table plays a subtle role. It tells you this is a real room, not a fantasy space. The scene feels grounded in the physical world, even though the dream happening on the bed takes you somewhere else entirely. That balance between real and unreal is one of the coolest parts of the painting. The room is simple and believable. The bed is normal. The curtains are normal. But the way the shadows wrap around everything, the way the light isolates the main figure, that's what makes the scene float between a real bedroom and a dream dimension. Another detail that often gets overlooked is the color palette. Fuseli didn't use bright blues, vivid greens, or bold reds. The whole room sits in deep browns, blacks, and warm gold tones. These colors make the room feel warm but heavy, comfortable but tense, a mix that fits sleep perfectly. And maybe the most interesting part, the room doesn't feel threatening. Yes, it's dark and shadowy, but it's not scary. It's more like the quiet darkness you feel when trying to fall asleep. Cozy, but also unpredictable. That space where your mind starts drifting, building little landscapes out of shadows. This is exactly the energy Fuseli wanted, a room that could be anyone's room, a room that feels familiar but mysterious at the same time, a room that doesn't shout but whispers, a room that frames the moment, holds it, and keeps our focus exactly where he wants it. And honestly, if the background had been bright or busy, the painting wouldn't have nearly the same impact. The dark room is what allows the dreamlike moment to stand out. It's the stage, the container, the quiet echo around the scene. So, in short, the room might look empty, but it's doing a huge job. It sets the mood, controls the lighting, and keeps your attention locked in while adding layers of depth and mystery. It's simple, but not plain, dark, but not threatening, calm, but not fully quiet. The perfect home for a strange dream moment frozen in time.
This time, we're talking about one of the most unusual details in the whole painting, the horse head peeking out from the shadows. Yep, that one. The wide-eyed, dramatic, I saw something I should not have seen horse. Let's dive in, nice and chill. When people first look at the nightmare, they notice the woman, then the creature sitting on her, and then after a moment, their eyes slide into the dark background, and bam, there it is, a horse head, just staring. And the reaction is usually something like, why? Well, that's exactly what makes this part so fun to talk about. The horse in the painting isn't a full horse, it's just the head and neck, peeking through a dark set of curtains like it's the world's most dramatic backstage entrance. The eyes are wide open, the nostrils are flared, and the expression is wild, but not angry, not scary, more like the horse just witnessed something unbelievable and is thinking, I did not sign up for this. The horse adds a surprising twist to the whole scene. Up until that point, everything feels tight and focused. Woman on bed, creature on top, dark room around them. Then suddenly, horse. It's such an odd detail that it instantly adds this dream-like energy. And honestly, that's the point. Dreams don't always make logical sense. Sometimes you're running late for school and suddenly you're flying. Sometimes you're talking to your best friend and then they turn into a lamp. Dreams love throwing random objects into the mix, and this random horse head has that exact energy. It feels out of place, but somehow right at the same time. Now let's look at it from an art angle. Horses were a big deal in paintings back then. They usually showed up in dramatic battle scenes, fancy portraits, or heroic moments. But Fuseli doesn't show this horse as noble or strong. He shows it like it just walked into the wrong room. Its expression is kind of shocked, kind of confused, and a little bit funny in a weird way. This gives the painting a touch of dark humor, even if it's subtle. The horse head also helps balance the painting. Think about it.
If the background were completely empty, all your attention would stay stuck in the middle, but the horse peeking from the shadows makes your eyes move around the canvas. It adds depth. It adds motion. It adds a second surprise moment after you notice the main scene. Another cool detail, the horse is glowing slightly, not glowing like a lamp, but catching enough light to stand out from the shadows. Fuseli did that on purpose. If the horse were too dark, you wouldn't notice it, but he wanted you to catch it eventually, like a delayed reaction. And when you finally see it, it gives you that, wait, what feeling that makes the painting so memorable. Let's talk about the eyes for a second. The horse's eyes are wide and bright, almost like it's startled. It looks straight ahead, not at the woman, not at the creature, just forward. Its expression is dramatic, almost frozen, and that frozen stare adds tension without actually showing anything dangerous. But here's something interesting. The horse isn't doing anything. It's not moving forward, it's not rearing up, it's not interacting with the rest of the scene. It's just watching, and that makes it feel part of the dream, something appearing in the background of the mind, not really part of the action. If you've ever had a dream where random things show up in the background for no reason, you'll get the vibe immediately. Another reason the horse works so well is the contrast. The creature on the woman is small, heavy, and solid. The horse is tall, bright-eyed, and partly hidden. One represents the close, heavy feeling of a strange dream. The other represents the distant, floating oddness that sometimes pops up in the corner of your mind during sleep. Together, they build the atmosphere of a mind drifting through a dream. There's also something theatrical about the horse. It's behind the curtain, almost like it's waiting for its cue. Fuseli loved dramatic stage scenes, so the horse could be acting as a kind of stage surprise, popping out at just the right moment to make everything feel more alive and more strange. And honestly, that mix of strange and dramatic fits the whole painting perfectly. But here's something important. The horse doesn't change the mood in a negative way. It doesn't make the scene too intense. It doesn't add anything harsh. It just adds weirdness. The fun kind, the kind that makes you tilt your head and keep staring. It also adds balance. The creature is dark and detailed. The woman is bright and soft. The horse sits somewhere in between. Bright eyes, dark shape, half hidden. It ties everything together quietly. And the best part, even though the horse is one of the oddest details in the whole painting, it never feels forced. It feels like something that belongs in a dream you can't quite explain. At the end of the day, that's exactly why it's there.
This time, we're slowing down and looking at something super important in the nightmare, the light and shadow. The whole mood of the painting depends on it. So let's take a quiet walk through the darkness and brightness Fuseli created. Relax your shoulders, and let's go. When you first look at the nightmare, the lighting hits you right away. Not because it's bright, but because it's carefully placed. Fuseli wasn't trying to light up the whole room. Instead, he used a focused light source that feels soft, warm, and very intentional. It's like someone lit a gentle spotlight right above the woman, leaving everything else to fade into the shadows. This kind of lighting creates a strong contrast. The woman, the sheets, and the bed look bright and almost glowing. The creature sitting on her and the rest of the room fall into deeper shadows. That contrast creates drama, tension, and mystery, all without needing any loud or dramatic elements. Think of it like when you're watching a relaxing video late at night and the screen lights up your face while the whole room stays dark. That's the vibe. Calm, focused, and a little dreamy. Let's break down the shadows first. The shadows in the painting aren't soft and fuzzy, they're heavy. They fall in thick layers, especially behind the woman. The curtains disappear into the darkness almost completely. The creature's shadow blends into the background, making it look like it grew out of the night itself. Even the horse head melts into the darkness so smoothly that you don't notice it at first. These shadows aren't just there to make things spooky. They help guide your eyes exactly where Fuseli wants them to go.
When the sides of the painting are dark, your attention naturally goes to the middle, the bright part. And that bright part is the woman. Now, the lighting on her is interesting. It's soft, almost like moonlight, but without showing an actual moon or lamp. Fuseli doesn't tell us where the light is coming from. It just exists. That's because this isn't real-world lighting. It's dream lighting, light that feels right, not light that follows rules. Her white dress catches this soft glow and spreads it across the bed. You can see how the folds of the sheet shine gently, like ripples of light. Her skin is highlighted too, giving her a calm, almost peaceful look, even though the situation looks dramatic. This lighting choice does something important. It separates her from everything else. The creature is dark and sharp, the room is hidden, but she glows softly, like she's the center of a quiet dream. Let's talk about the creature for a moment. Even though it's dark, it's not completely buried in shadow. Fuseli lets just enough light touch it so you can see its shape, its posture, its face. That tiny bit of light draws attention without overpowering the calmness of the scene. It balances the picture. Too much light would ruin the mood, and too much darkness would make the scene confusing. The horse head in the back gets a tiny bit of lighting too, just enough so its eyes shine. It's subtle, but effective. One soft highlight can make an entire shape pop out of the darkness. Another thing to notice, there are almost no sharp edges in the shadows. Everything blends, things fade, the darkness wraps around the objects like a blanket. This gives the entire painting a warm, dreamlike softness. Nothing feels harsh or sharp to your eyes. It's all gentle, even the darker areas. That's why the painting feels calm, even though the scene itself is dramatic. The lighting smooths everything out. Now, let's look at how the shadows and light work together to create depth. The bright areas come forward, the dark areas drift back. This makes the painting feel three-dimensional without needing detailed backgrounds. The curtain looks like it's deeper in the room. The bed looks like it's floating slightly. The creature appears solid and heavy because its shadows are strong. This is Fuseli's way of building depth without clutter. One of the coolest parts is how the lighting seems to freeze the moment. It's like time stopped. The room is still. The woman is frozen mid-dream. The creature sits motionless. The horse head watches quietly. This frozen feeling is created by the way the light hits just one part and leaves everything else untouched. It's like shining a beam on one thought inside a dream, while the rest of the mind stays quiet. If you imagine this painting lit evenly, bright room, clear background, it wouldn't feel the same at all. The mystery would vanish, the tension would disappear, the dream-like vibe would drop instantly. The entire mood of the nightmare relies on this delicate dance between darkness and light. It's simple, but powerful. And that's the beauty of it. Fuseli didn't need explosions, busy scenes, or crazy lighting tricks. He just used a calm, soft glow surrounded by thick shadows to create a moment that feels quiet, strange, and unforgettable. The perfect mood for a dreamy bedtime documentary.
Now we're talking about something fun. Why Henry Fuseli's painting style is so, well, Fuseli. Because the nightmare doesn't look like an ordinary artwork from the 1700s, it has its own personality, its own mood, its own dramatic flair. So let's drift into this calmly, like we're floating through a quiet museum at midnight. Fuseli had a very unique way of painting. Most artists of his time focused on clean lines, soft expressions, smooth surfaces, and bright, balanced colors. But Fuseli? Nope, he went full drama mode. He loved bold shadows, stretched poses, and scenes that felt like they were caught mid-action. His style was emotional, exaggerated, and full of energy, and The Nightmare is one of the best examples of that. Let's start with the poses. Fuseli didn't like normal, everyday positions. He liked dramatic shapes, twisted bodies, and arms stretched out, like the characters were acting in a stage play. The woman lying on the bed is a perfect example. Nobody sleeps like that, but the pose makes the whole scene feel intense and dreamy.
Her arms are thrown back, her body is arched, her hair spills downward, all exaggerated for effect. Fuseli wanted everything to feel larger than life, but not in a loud way, more like a quiet, intense stage performance where every gesture is intentional. He was also a fan of strong outlines. When you look at his paintings, you'll notice that many things have defined edges instead of soft blends. This gives his subjects a kind of sharp presence, even in the darkness. The creature, for example, stands out clearly from the bed, even though it's painted with dark tones. That heavy outline style makes it look solid, almost carved out of shadow. Now, let's talk about his sense of drama. Fuseli loved scenes that made you pause and think, what is going on here? Not in a confusing way, but in a curious way. He used tension and stillness like tools. In The Nightmare, nothing is actually moving, yet the whole scene feels like it's vibrating with energy. The woman is frozen mid-dream, the creature is frozen mid-stare, the horsehead is frozen mid-peak. The painting feels like a moment captured a split second before something else happens. Another thing that makes Fuseli's style special is the atmosphere. His paintings often have a cloudy, smoky texture to them. Not literal smoke, but a murky softness that makes everything feel dreamlike. He didn't try to make things look super realistic. Instead, he focused on feeling, mood, emotion. The shadows in The Nightmare melts together softly, almost like the whole scene is covered in a thin mist. That atmosphere is what pulls you into the painting and makes it feel like a dream instead of a real scene. And then, of course, there's the color palette. Fuseli didn't use a lot of bright, cheerful colors. He liked deeper tones, browns, reds, dark yellows, blacks, warm colors, but heavy ones, colors that feel calm but dense, colors that blend into each other instead of jumping out. In The Nightmare, the warm browns of the room and the dark shadows blend perfectly with the soft gold lighting on the woman. Nothing looks too sharp, nothing looks too harsh. The palette creates a gentle weight, almost like the whole scene is wrapped in a thick blanket. Another cool detail about Fuseli's style is how he used emotion. A lot of paintings from his time showed calm, perfect expressions, but Fuseli liked faces that showed something deeper: surprise, tension, shock, confusion. The creature's wide-eyed stare, classic Fuseli. The horsehead with its dramatic expression, also very Fuseli. He loved big emotional moments. One more thing, he didn't care too much about making things pretty. He cared about making them interesting. Some artists focused on beauty, especially in portraits, but Fuseli focused on impact. He wanted people to feel something when they looked at his work: mystery, curiosity, tension, something emotional. And that brings us to one more key part of his style: imagination. Fuseli didn't just paint what he saw, he painted what he felt. He painted things from his mind, from stories, from his own sense of drama. He used imagination the way some people use a flashlight, pointing it into dark corners and revealing strange, fascinating shapes. In The Nightmare, this imagination takes center stage. A woman sleeping, a creature on top of her, a horse in the shadows, dramatic poses, floaty lighting, heavy shadows. It's like he reached into a dream, grabbed a handful of weirdness, and said, "All right, let's paint this." Fuseli's style isn't subtle. It's bold, expressive, and packed with emotion. But at the same time, it's controlled. Every brushstroke feels planned. Every shadow falls exactly where it needs to. Everything looks dramatic, but also calm in its own way. That mix, the balance between intensity and stillness, is what makes his art so memorable. And it's exactly why The Nightmare still catches people's attention centuries later. It doesn't just show you a scene, it pulls you into a mood, a feeling, a dream.
Dreamy journey through Fuseli's The Nightmare. Let's lean back, maybe sip some warm tea, and think about why this painting, created over 240 years ago, still has the power to grab our attention, make us pause, and leave us a little unsettled. First, let's be honest. This painting is weird, like really weird. A woman lying on a bed, a tiny creature on her chest, a horse peeking out from the shadows. It's not something you see in a normal living room, but that's exactly what makes it so compelling. Our brains love mystery. We see things that don't fully make sense, and we can't look away. Fuseli knew this. He captured a moment that's not entirely real, not entirely explainable, but totally relatable on a subconscious level. Think about sleep. Every single one of us spends a huge portion of our lives in this strange, quiet state. We drift in and out of dreams, sometimes forgetting where our bodies are. Sometimes we wake up confused, startled, or just heavy-eyed. The painting taps into that shared human experience. The woman, the creature, the horse, they're all symbols of the weird, unpredictable stuff that can happen when we're asleep. And that's why the painting continues to haunt viewers, not because it's scary in a traditional sense, but because it feels familiar. Most of us have experienced moments of waking up and feeling pinned, or seeing shadows in our room, or having our minds create strange images while our bodies rest. The painting captures that exact vulnerability. It's like looking into a mirror of your own half-asleep imagination. Another reason the painting remains so memorable is its drama. Fuseli was a master at balancing calm and tension. The woman is peaceful, the creature is still, the horse is surprised, and the room is dark, all at once. That contrast between motion and stillness, between calm and unease, is something our brains naturally notice. It sticks with us because it's emotionally active, even if nothing is moving. The technical mastery also plays a role. Fuseli's use of light and shadow, his dramatic poses, and his imaginative composition create a sense of depth and atmosphere that feels almost cinematic, even though cameras wouldn't exist for another century. The painting doesn't just show a moment, it feels like we are inside the moment, hovering over the bed, watching a dream unfold. That immersive quality is timeless. Let's not forget the tiny creature either. It's small, yes, but it dominates the scene. Its presence adds tension and curiosity. It's so calm yet strange that our brains want to understand it. Why is it there? What is it doing? This small mystery gives the painting a kind of sticky quality. You keep thinking about it long after you've looked away. And then there's the horse, quietly peeking out from behind the curtain. The horse is absurdly dramatic and completely unexpected. Its wide eyes and flared nostrils create an awkward humor, a little relief in the middle of tension. That mix of unease and slight amusement keeps the viewer emotionally engaged, making the painting feel alive. Fuseli's style also adds to the lasting impact. His exaggerated figures, the way he blends realism with imagination, the floating sense of space, and the thick, moody shadows all contribute to a scene that feels like a dream. Not a nightmare in the traditional sense, though that's in the title, but a vivid, memorable moment from the subconscious. And here's something fun. The painting invites interpretation. Over the centuries, viewers have projected their own thoughts onto it. Some see psychological tension, some see dream logic, some see humor, some see pure strangeness. That openness makes it endlessly interesting. Unlike a painting that tells you exactly what to feel, the nightmare gives you clues and lets your mind do the rest. Another reason it sticks around in our minds is its universality. Sleep, dreams, and that half-awake, half-asleep vulnerability are experiences everyone shares. No matter where or when you live, your mind drifts during sleep. Fuseli captured that universal human experience so perfectly that it transcends centuries, cultures, and personal differences. Finally, let's talk about mood. The combination of calm, tension, and surrealism creates an atmosphere that's oddly meditative. Even if the painting is weird, it has a rhythm to it. Your eyes move across the bed, the creature, the shadows, and the horse, taking in each piece without rushing. That's why it's perfect for our bedtime story vibe. You can look at it, drift into thought, and let your imagination wander without being jolted by anything chaotic. So why does the nightmares still haunt us today? Because it's weird yet familiar, strange yet relatable.
It's dramatic, yet calm. It's a frozen moment of dream logic, captured with skill and imagination. It resonates because it taps into our shared human experiences of sleep, dreams, and that half awake, half asleep vulnerability. Even after centuries, it continues to intrigue, puzzle, and mesmerize viewers, exactly what Fuseli intended, and that's why it remains one of the most famous, memorable, and enduring works of art in history.